Hello, in this video in my Help Desk Software and Technical Support series, I'm talking about product evaluation strategies and support standards. In this video, we will talk about the idea of product standards, including the case for standards, how to develop and implement those standards, as well as typical product support standards. We'll also talk about dealing with product selection evaluation by various methods, and really we should just take a look at the specific objectives now, because we as support providers, help desk support, whichever term your organization is using, we seem to come across having to do more than just the tickets and those support tasks that we've talked about in other lessons. We often find ourselves responsible for evaluating technology products and services and setting the product standards for end users within the organizations that we're employed. These tasks are typically more common for support groups that provide service to our internal users. However, sometimes some of us as support workers are going to work on product evaluation and standards for external users as in a type of consultant type role. So you might find yourself either evaluating these technology products and services with internal customers or doing that for external customers. It just depends on your organization. So throughout this video, we'll talk about how product and support standards emerged, the common tools and methods for evaluating and selecting those technology products that we need to look at. We'll also talk about information resources and decision-making tools for evaluating and selecting those technology products, typical technology product support standards, and then we'll conclude with how our organizations develop and implement the various product standards. Let's go ahead now and take a look at that first one over how product and support standards emerged. A little bit of history here. And hopefully in your organization that you will be seen as a support worker with the expertise to evaluate competing products that other people in the organization either don't have the ability to or should definitely not be doing in the evaluation process. This is going to eliminate the duplication of efforts because we are the points of contact that should be for all IT needs. And sometimes we can act as a liaison between users and the staff to represent the viewpoints of each group. Sometimes we have IT managers or other people in the IT group that maybe don't have the expertise for certain products or products that we need to evaluate, but yet we have someone else that does. So if we can have the person who needs the product, let's say someone in an engineering group who wants to implement a new type of drafting software, and let's say we have one person in our group who has some knowledge of drafting software, has experience in other organizations, whatever the case may be, they're definitely a person we should use, not like our web developer. So sometimes we're just going to, certain individuals as support workers are going to simply be liaisons. So just make sure that that might be something that needs to be written into your IT policies. But whatever the case may be, when it comes to product support and evaluation of that, the right person needs to be in that position, whether it's as a liaison or just, hey, the IT group is the one who needs to evaluate that. If we're going to eliminate that duplication of effort of multiple people looking at this, we want to do it right the first time. All right, now back to how these product standards emerged. And when I use the term product standards, this is really just a list of hardware, peripheral, operating systems, network, and application software products that are selected to meet the needs of our end users within or outside of the organization. Sometimes it's good to write these product standards and have them available within your organization so that when new products need to be evaluated, or someone wants to talk about, oh, I just saw this software online or at this conference, and I really think we should implement it here. Well, when you have these product standards available, then you can match that up to say, oh, okay, well, this can meet the needs of our customers, or our end users, but there's some incompatibilities here. So make sure that within your organization, you don't let that happen. Have those product standards developed as a solid IT support group. And the reason that these product standards come about is historically, there were a lot of incompatibilities among computer products. This is way back in the day when the earth was still cooling, back in the 80s. Vendors were just putting products out there, but they may not be compatible with various hardware, or different computer products. So these incompatible products just were a lot of headache. And when every little place is making this or making that for the same purpose, but there's no standards out there, that creates problems. So we had to come together and create some type of standards due to that great lack of standards. You saw people were buying this product or that product, this computer, that computer. So we had that diverse products in our organizations, and that created a lot of inopportunities to share amongst each other because, this isn't compatible with your system and your system isn't compatible with this system. So we had a lot of challenges to overcome, and the training of technicians was crazy because of all the different equipment, hardware, and software from all these different platforms. So with this great difficulty we faced, increased costs to support all these different incompatible systems, it was just ridiculous. And therefore, hopefully you can obviously see the need for standards was evident, and that's why we have standards in our organizations now, so we don't come across all these incompatibility issues. One example I can think of easily that we do see in today's market or in our organizations is the whole BYOB movement that started, back in 2011, 2012, where, we don't want to spend money for computers and phones. We'll just let our employees who are buying these anyway use their own in our organizations. Well, now as support staff, how are we supposed to be able to help our end users on all these products that we don't know anything about because we've never come face to face because we can't afford to have every cell phone or every computer? So the standards in your organization are just incredible to have, and hopefully this BYOB movement or BYOD movement does fade out even faster over the next couple of years to help us as support representatives. So we standardize to a few hardware platforms, and they started to realize that in the 80s, and they said, okay, we're going to adopt some standard operating systems, and we're going to limit the choice of application software to just a few standard application packages in each of our software categories that we've identified. And to do all this, we have to have a process that's known as product evaluation. And that's where we move into talking about common tools and methods for evaluating and selecting technology products. Now, the product evaluation is simply just a process of researching and analyzing computer product features, the product capabilities, and suitability to solve our corporations or our user-specific needs, whether they're internal or external customers. And in this product evaluation process, we're going to collect the product information. We're going to test, compare, evaluate advantages as well as evaluate those disadvantages against competing products. And based on this information we've collected and tested, we're going to make decisions or recommendations. Now, are there some issues in product evaluation? Sure, there's some issues that we need to look at when it comes to each and every product, such as, does this perform the way that it was advertised by the manufacturer? In the product evaluation, we have to say, okay, is this better than what we already have, or is it not? Another thing you might ask is it compatible with our existing hardware, network, and operating system configurations? If it doesn't, well then obviously you're going to incur some costs as well as training. Does this product meet the user needs, or does it maybe lack some of the features? Maybe there are features in there that aren't really apt for our end users that could create more problems. You need to be very aware of that. Does this technology, does it increase our users' productivity? Is it cost effective to use this technology? And one of the things that it's hard to predict, but we need to look at that and say, okay, as I'm evaluating this product, is there a chance that this could become an industry standard or not? That's a big risk. But if you're doing some research and you see that, these large companies are starting to use this product, that may indicate that it's going to be an industry standard. Or maybe some of the certification vendors are talking about this product. That's a sign that it might be becoming an industry standard. And when you're evaluating this, another question you might ask yourself is this preferable to upgrade now or one that we can do later? And the big one is, what about the stability of the product? If a product's not stable, pretty good sign you should not go to it. Obviously, we, the members of the user support staff who know the users in our organizations or even external, because we're familiar with their needs, their products they have or that we have in-house, as well as industry trends, we are the ones who can research these and various other questions to be able to answer those questions and evaluate these products. If you're not real familiar with your users, then you can interview them, observe, maybe even casual observation of what they're using, what they're doing in their day-to-day operations, and collect all this information, ask very critical questions to those, and then identify those advantages and disadvantages of these products. Now we have some resources available to help evaluate computer products. That's what we'll talk about now. The information resources and decision-making tools for evaluating and selecting our technology products. Some of these might be common sense, some might be a little new to you, and some you might just have forgotten about. But some of these resources include vendor literature from the actual vendor. Maybe there's some marketing information available. Check the vendor's website, as well as check for user manuals that are available for free through our vendors. Companies that want to sell their products, they're going to give you information to help sell you on that idea that, hey, we are what you need. We can meet your customer needs. Another information resource available to us are demonstration and evaluation versions. These are great to know if there's compatibility issues, what features are available. Sometimes in the demonstration or evaluation versions, you don't get all the features, but this will give you some idea. Maybe those other features aren't what you're looking for anyway, or maybe they're something that your end users don't even know they need yet. Just be careful with demonstration and evaluation versions of products in your organizations, because they cannot stay on longer than those evaluation periods. Once those periods are up, you need to remove those products from your end users' machines and equipment so that you're not violating the rights of using that as a trial version. If an auditor comes in, you don't want to have to explain that. You don't want to be caught with getting a minor or major penalty for that and then having to explain that to upper management why you allowed that to happen. Another resource are product reviews and comparison articles in different periodicals and online evaluations of these products. Of course, you need to sift through the product reviews. Some people are just going to hate it. Some people are going to love it, and they may not say why. So make sure you're doing your research and looking through those. There's also, as a resource, opinions of industry experts that are published in specific trade periodicals, web blogs, and discussion forums. You will find out that the discussion forums will help you evaluate products, and one thing that you can see sometimes very clearly is what type of problems are there, and are there solutions, and what is everyone else doing. You also find a lot of times that what people are posting on these forums may be a similar environment to what you're working on, so you'll know compatibility and user ease and product faults. So those are great to use because those are colleagues that are out there that are helping give you information. Maybe there are some colleagues who have actual experience with the product that are in your organization, or that you know from other networking that you can reach out to, and they're like, oh, okay, we tried that, it didn't work, or hey, this is a great product, here's how we implement it, here's the type of support we got from the vendor, and various information like that. And then of course there are buyer's guides you can use as well. An example of this is the Help Desk Institute, which I've mentioned previously, the HDI. The Help Desk Institute offers a buyer's guide of tools and solutions that are targeted to specific help desk operations. So this is kind of your one-stop shop. So you could go look at their buyer's guide and get a good feel if it's something that you think is worth looking into further. Use some of those computer industry websites that constantly put out product reviews and comparisons, such as cnet.com. They have reviews on stuff like that. I mean, it's great. If you're in the Mac world, use macworld.com, or PC Magazine and PC World are great resources. ZDNet, Tom's Hardware. These are all very good industry websites that test products, provide product reviews. So make sure to utilize those resources that are always out there available to you 24/7. I'll talk a little bit about those decision-making tools, such as what's the industry standard, or what are the best-selling products being used in the industry? What about our competitors? What products are they using? And what about benchmarks? Now, benchmark is just an objective test or measurement used to evaluate the speed, the capacity, those capabilities, or productivity of various competing products. And we can use these benchmarks to compare two or more of those rival products, because benchmarks are really a popular way to compare products, so we don't have to. So someone might already have some criteria they want to evaluate, and they do it for us. Or maybe you're going to do a benchmark in your company. This term gets used around a lot. So a benchmark, great objective test to be able to evaluate all the, a couple products. So if you have a chance to compete in some benchmarks and do those, great. Just know this is another decision-making tool that you can use. There's also the weighted point evaluation method, which is just a comparison tool of products that uses several of your key criteria of predetermined importance to evaluate these different competing products or services, and come up with some type of numerical score. And then based on that, then you can help make your decision. There's also the RFP, or request for proposal. And with the request for approval, there are a lot of public agencies that are required by law to use this method. And there's 8 steps for the RFP process. But the request for proposal is just a product selection or competitive bidding procedure. It uses objectives criteria to select among products proposed by various vendors. But a successful RFP process can assure that vendors are being evaluated fairly according to these established rules. And the use of the RFP tool is going to help reduce the likelihood of a lawsuit as a result of perceived or even real procurement problems. This is a very objective process. When it comes to this RFP process, an organization is going to follow these 8 primary steps. They're going to conduct a user needs assessment. Based on that needs assessment, they're going to develop a purchase specification for the equipment or the software applications to describe the technical characteristics and features that are required. Step 3, they're going to define the decision criteria that will guide the evaluation and selection process, and determine the importance of each criterion. When we get to step 4, we're going to write an RFP document that describes the technology requirements, the bidding procedure, and the decision criteria. Then we'll move into step 5, which is to send that RFP document we created in step 4 to our prospective vendors. And we're going to, obviously, should maintain a list of vendors. So we're going to send that to them. Then step 6, hopefully we're going to receive those vendor written proposals, where each proposal should address how the vendor's products and services meet or hopefully exceed the technology requirements that include a bid price at which the vendor can supply us their proposed solution. Step 7 then is to analyze and evaluate the responses to the RFPs using that weighted point evaluation or some other type of objective method. And then the 8th step is just common sense. After having done all that, we're going to select a vendor and award that vendor our purchasing contract. Now let's move on to talking about typical technology product support standards. As I previously mentioned, we need to try to control and reduce our support costs by establishing technology product standards so that we can limit the number of hardware and software devices that our users can choose in our organizations. Now, I know this might sound like it's our way or no way, or there's no way that one size fits all approach can work in an organization. It doesn't have to seem that way to your end users. But we have to have standards in place, and then we can work with our end users to try to find that middle ground when it comes to something that maybe we haven't seen. And typically that's what you're going to come across is we can't know every product out there, hardware and software both. We cannot know everything that's out there, and new stuff's being developed all the time. But just to be clear, we must develop and have some product support standards in our organization to keep the incompatibility issues down, keep the chaos down, but give our end users some flexibility and some options. Hopefully in your organization, IT will be making the choices, especially for product procurement, and working with our vendors to get your products in there. But there may be a need for, let's say there is a new media department. Is a typical Dell laptop with a standard desktop setup good enough for someone in the media department who will be creating different visual aids, different web content, all that? No, you may need to have a product or work with them to develop the standards for that position. So make sure that you're always getting user input. So let's now talk about how organizations develop and implement product standards. Well, we know we need them. Well, how do we do it? Overall, in your organization, your standards are going to be based on your organization's computer culture, as well as historic technology purchase traditions. Sometimes you might have a product standards committee, and this is just going to be a group that defines the technology product standards and coordinates their use of their technology. This might be your support specialist. You might include, and obviously you should include, end users from the organization. You should definitely include your technical IT staff as well as members of management so that all parties are fairly represented. Having this type of product standards committee can allow easier buy-in as well as positive information that's going out because everyone's involved. This is just proven over and over again that when all parties are involved, it's easier to implement and there's a lot more buy-in. The less conflict, the smoother an organization is going to run. Because in most cases, you will find out that changes in technology product standards can be met with great resistance. If users aren't comfortable with the existing standard, there's going to be resistance. And as I said before, a lot of people, especially in the management level, look at if it's not broke, why should we invest to fix it? So get that buy-in. Now, your changes in your product standards should be discussed with your end users. You should involve those users in the decisions. As a result of doing this, there should always be user training opportunities to make that transition flow a lot better in your organization. Now, when you're doing this conversion to a new standard from the old, this could and should be done over time in different phases. So make sure that you phase in the new standards in parallel with the new standards. Everyone needs to be aware of this, and that phasing it will allow you to make sure everything's going to work right, make sure everyone's involved, make sure that there's not any resistance or that you minimize that. Because that conversion to those new standards can result in a loss of employee productivity during that transitional period. And we're doing things in parallel. a lot of times people will see, oh, this is better than I'm doing it right now, and it'll go much smoother. Now there's some criteria that are used to update your product standards, such as new products typically offer technical improvements. Another criteria would be that new products have features with the potential to improve your employee productivity. Or perhaps another one is that end user product preferences have changed over the time of the organization. Another criteria that's led to the decision to modify our existing product support standards is that new products and services are available at a lower cost than our existing products. One place that you might have seen this, or you may see it, is with stick PCs. If I can buy a monitor that's a little bit bigger for a cubicle area, and instead of putting a desktop in there, which is space consuming, or giving the user a laptop that may or may not come back to the building, or there's all those chances for people breaking them, dropping them and such. If I give them a stick PC through an HDMI port in the back of their monitor, and they've got a keyboard and mouse there, it's less space, it's going to stay here, and it's going to be much lower than a desktop PC or a laptop. That is a reason why I might want to change my product standards, because now it is costing me less than what I had been doing. Another criteria that could lead to this decision in changing our product standards is that new products may be compatible with changes in the industry standards, unlike the old products that we've been supporting. And lastly, perhaps new products are better supported than the products that we currently have that they're going to replace. So if we're going to get better support, we're going to get a better product, we're going to change our product standards. You will find a lot of times, though, that the decision to replace an existing product is often difficult to make because our organizations may have a sizable investment in that existing standard, as well as our end users have invested time to learn how to use it, and people are just reluctant to change to something different. So make sure that you're analyzing and evaluating your products and services very stringently before making any type of adoption or modifications to your technology standards. Sometimes your support costs are going to increase during the transitions between your old standards and implementing your new standards. And support costs are, it depends on the situation, but sometimes those are invaluable because we'll see that we have a need as an organization. Maybe we don't have the people who can support all the things that come with those new technology standards that are going to be implemented, such as the installation or continuous upgrades. Maybe we can't support the training of our individuals or documentation, but if we pay for that support, they can provide us that information. That's where we see some of those costs that increase, because obviously we're going to something new. Another reason, as I mentioned a couple others, why we may convert is that, so I already talked about how maybe there's some new features, or maybe just this is the latest innovation is becoming a trend in the industry. But another one is that perhaps our vendor of our current product is going to discontinue the support of their existing technology. And this happens a lot. Maybe a company folds, or maybe they're like, oh, we're not making any money, so we need to develop a new product, and then we're going to discontinue the support of the old product so that people that like this product realize, okay, we like this product, we're going to go ahead and upgrade. So you might see that because of that discontinued support from the vendor. But as the evaluator, you need to look at some reasons. Maybe there's reasons to not adopt a new product standard, a new technology. And it's like the new features just aren't worth the costs to convert over to this new product. Or perhaps you see that the new technology is not as stable as what you're currently working with. Maybe your organization has a substantial investment in your current technology and everything that goes along with that, and maybe what you have is not going to work with that new technology. So there's a lot of factors you have to weigh to decide whether to convert or not to convert. when let's say your operating systems are updating or changing every few years. We had a lot of people loved Windows XP, and then Windows decided to stop supporting that. Then we went to okay, in the next couple of years they're going to stop supporting Windows 7, which everyone has used for so many years. More users on Windows 7 than probably on Windows XP. Now you're going to be told, okay, we're no longer support Windows 7. Most people aren't using Windows 8. We're using Windows 10, but during that time, you're probably going to get another operating system introduced. From a support perspective, you're going to have to look at, okay, is this going to be supported on this new operating system? Are we going to be able to continue to maintain our operations based on new operating systems? Or do we need to stay with our current version and just write it out? Which obviously, there's security features or issues with that. So that's just an example of what's impacting the industry and how these organizations are having to evaluate and decide whether to implement these new product standards. With OSs changing every few years, this is going to be a larger factor in our organizations and trying to support existing standards as well as when and how to develop those new standards. So in our organizations, we need to decide what's permitted and not permitted to help with these product standards, and that we do that through the use of the acceptable use guidelines. These are going to be adopted by our organization and publicized amongst our end users to clarify which types of technology are used and are permitted, as well as those that are not permitted for our devices and our networks. These acceptable use guidelines describe behaviors prohibited by an organizational policy, as well as describe some illegal behavior, such as unauthorized access to confidential information. So we need to say what's prohibited, what's not prohibited, and what can be deemed as illegal. Typically, you will find that organizations are going to ask employees to sign a printed copy of the organization's acceptable use guidelines to simply acknowledge that they received and read those guidelines. Sometimes you'll see that penalties for violating the acceptable user guidelines can range anywhere from the loss of that technology to even terminations of employment. And in some cases, unfortunately, we have to come across this where there are even legal prosecution based on what was done with the organization's products. And when you get into the IT field, you'll learn more about when you come across those situations, having a chain of custody form ready and being able to properly secure the information in case for those legal situations, and you have to protect that information and make sure that it's secured in a way that when it comes to court, it can't be thrown out for something that you did or did not do. So make sure these acceptable use guidelines are very specific, and a lot of times if your organization has legal representation, have them look over it as well. Well, everyone, that's it for this one. That's a lot of information, I know, in this little lecture here, but there's a lot that is involved in product evaluation strategies and support standards. Thank you for following along, and I hope you found this information helpful, and good luck in your pursuit of your IT careers and your day-to-day operations in your organization.